Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Council of the Town of Oakville. I invite everyone to rise and join Council in O Canada. Thank you. Please be seated. I will now lead Council in our opening prayer, followed by our moment of silent reflection, and then we will begin the business of the meeting proper. God grant us understanding and patience that justice, truth, and honesty may be evident in our decisions. Make us mindful of the needs of the people throughout the town of Oakville. Help us govern with the wider community in mind, and so create in us a desire for progress and responsible action. We ask this in your name. Amen. Thank you, everyone. We have no regrets this evening, and Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Thank you. You have before you the minutes of previous Council meetings on October 9th and 22nd, both regular, special, and confidential. How do you wish to deal with your minutes? Councillor Johnston moves approval of the minutes, seconded by Councillor Duddock. Any changes? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? The minutes are adopted. Council, it's my pleasure at this time to tell you that the town of Oakville has received an award for its 2011 Economic Development Annual Report. The Silver Award from the International Economic Development Council is an honor that continues the string of honors our Economic Development Department has won for us. And it includes a comprehensive summary of development activity in 2011, the report did, and highlights of local companies. And if the clerk would assist me by holding up the silver framed plaque that accompanies the Silver Award, you'll see the kudos that we've gained to be hung on the wall. The IEDC is the world's largest independent nonprofit membership and research organization devoted exclusively to the field of economic development. Its Excellence in Economic Development Awards recognize the world's best economic development programs and partnerships, marketing materials, and the year's most influential leaders. And we are, of course, pleased to be recognized, and just ask yourself if you'd prefer the alternative. So thank you very much to the Economic Development Department for their continued good work on our behalf. This evening we have a presentation from John Weiss, the chair, and Ken Phillips, the CAO, Secretary-Treasurer of Conservation Halton. And this is to update us on the activities of Conservation Halton. I might point out that there's a kind of delicious irony here. Many of us have It's been very hard to escape the hype in the media about the storm approaching. Everyone's familiar with Sandy, and it was Hurricane Hazel, where the remnants of a hurricane combined with a nor'easter to produce the disastrous results that led to a new seriousness with respect to conservation and planning and guarding against people doing inappropriate things in floodplain. And here on the eve of, this is the next time that a storm anywhere remotely describing that formula of Hazel is upon us. And so how appropriate that we have Conservation Halton with us. As it's become fashionable in some quarters to bemoan the safety guidelines that conservation authorities give us across the province, I think it's a wonderful time for us to be reminded of the conservation work that the authorities do. And I welcome Mr. Phillips and Mr. Weiss. We look forward to your information.
Halton. Most of you are no strangers to Conservation Halton. 4 of you sit on our board, Councillors Elgard, Dudek, Johnson, and Keith Bird is the Vice Chair of Conservation Halton. I'd like to take a few minutes this evening to present an update to Conservation Halton's activities over the last year and relate how they add value to our mandate and yours. That mandate being providing first-rate, cost-effective environmental management and outdoor recreation services to the residents of Oakville. I think it's appropriate to recognize from our perspective the pro-environment attitude that is very present in this room with this council, and for that we're grateful. Thank you. This past year saw Conservation Halton continue to fulfill its mandate to protect the natural environment from the lake to the escarpment and create opportunities for watershed residents in recreation and education. Once again, an unprecedented number of people visited our parks and took advantage of the opportunity to explore and enjoy the beautiful natural areas that are close to home. Park attendance continued to climb. In 2011, we had over 800,000 visitors to our parks. 2012 will be another record year. We had an increase in 2011 of 7 or 8%, amounting to some 60,000 additional visitors. Glen Eden ranked in the top 4 among Ontario Snow Resort Association members in terms of visits. 317,000 visitors during the 2011-2012 season. The second straight year we had more than 300,000 visitors. Having such a ski facility at our doorstep is a definite bonus for the area residents. With over 1,200 seasonal staff at our parks, we're also one of the largest youth employers in the area. We continue to make good progress on the rehab of the Glenorchy Conservation Area. While Ken will provide you with more information in a few minutes, I'd like to say that this has been an excellent partner for all of us. The master plans were completed last year. Fundraising is going well and the community is actively engaged in the process. And while there's a long way to go, I'm confident that Conservation Halton will provide excellent stewardship for this magnificent public asset for the people of Oakville. Just as an aside, Councillor Elgar is quite aware, we got an offer from the province to double the number of trees we plant, and those are going to go into the Glenorchy area. I think there'll be 50,000 trees get planted in the Glenorchy Park this coming year. So that's going to advance our plans for that area as well. Education programs at Conservation Halton remain a key area of focus and development. In 2011, we had more than 65,000 school children participate in our summer camps, class field trips, and in-class presentations. We take a great deal of pride in offering this service, and while policies and planning are critical to ensuring environmental protection and sustainability for future generations, it doesn't hurt to truly inspire the children who are genuinely our future and the most precious asset when it comes to the future of conservation. It's neat to see these kids at the Water Festival and the Forest Festival. The environmental movement is taking hold with them, and that just has to pay dividends for all of us down the road. The Halton Children's Water Festival celebrated its 7th year just a few weeks ago. Nearly 4,000 children attended the 4-day event, bringing the total to 25,000 students over a 7-year period that have participated in that water festival. Town of Oakville has been a most valued supporter of this festival from day one, and thank you again for that. If water is a precious resource for us to value and teach our children, then forests cannot be far behind. And so last week we held our first ever Halton Forest Festival. Close to 1,000 students from grades 6 and 7 were there. Here again, we appreciate your financial support. This being the first year, we're looking for the Forest Festival to grow like the Water Festival has. Also last year, Conservation Halton Foundation raised over $445,000 in donations for new structures and projects in the Conservation Halton. This is a 6% increase in total funds raised over the previous year. Our planning, engineering, and ecology staff are to be commended for the work in preserving and protecting the watershed's natural environment through their review of permits, planning application, and extensive long-term monitoring. Our ability to offer our services in a responsible and cost-effective, innovative manner is a testament to the strong partnership within our municipalities. Collaboration is built into our DNA, as it is for all conservation authorities, but to be truly successful and be leaders in conservation and watershed management, we count on our talented staff and yours to work together towards our common goal. I should comment about the Glen Eden resource. We've had some ups and downs there that were so much weather-driven. In the last 5 or 6 years, our staff have just done a superb job. They've analyzed the need, they've reacted in advance of the season, and last year, which was a pretty crummy ski year, we had a tremendous success at Glen Eden, and that's got nothing to do with weather. It's, in spite of the weather, it's a testament to the skill and the planning that went into that operation, and they're to be commended for that. With that, I thank you for your continued support of Conservation Halton and for giving me an opportunity to present this evening. Now I'd like to turn things over to Ken, the CAO of Conservation Halton, to present a few highlights from many recent projects.
Thank you, Mr. Vice. Your Worship, members of Council and staff, I believe you've just received tonight copies of our latest accountability report. This is the 5th year in which we have issued this report, and as you can see, it very much details what our activities were over the last year, including number of permit applications, permits issued, planning applications dealt with, and general inquiries. So please take some time to look through that. We'd really like to stress, on behalf of Conservation Halton, thanks to staff here at the Town of Oakville for working with us on a number of projects. Some of them, such as the North Oakville Hospital, required a lot of expedited timelines, modified approval processes, very unique in its scope, having to deal with the impacts on the Glenorchy Conservation Area. So we certainly thank the town for their efforts in making sure that project got through. We've also been involved with Oakville with the Oakville Water Sustainability Planning. We've been involved with the Midtown Oakville Transportation and Stormwater Management Study, liaising with the M&R in terms of completing works related to 14 Mile Creek rehabilitation, working with staff with regard to the Hayes Pond and Hayes Boulevard areas. So many projects. I have probably 30 projects listed here, major projects that we participated with town staff in this last year, and once again certainly like to thank their efforts. In terms of some of our day-to-day activities, our enforcement staff responded to at least 15 complaints within the town of Oakville over the last year regarding unauthorized development within the natural areas, and an increasing number of these complaints are in relation to illegal fill operations associated with large-scale infrastructure projects. As John mentioned earlier, the Glenorchy Conservation Area is important to us. in this area. It was established in 2008 and covers 400 hectares, and we have a 10-year plan. The work this year began on pit and mound forest restoration throughout the Hydro One Biodiversity Initiative. We have rehabilitated 70 of the 170 acres. We're planting 24,000 trees this year. As John mentioned, we're hoping to double that amount next year, along with 360 liters of tree and shrub seeds and 89 kilograms of wildflower seeds. Wetland restoration in the area will be seeing the planting of some 3,000 plants, and we've also been heavily engaged with invasive species removal. Other ecology projects, Bronte Marsh restoration, are ongoing with town staff. Another interesting project we undertook this last year was a fisheries survey along the Lake Ontario shoreline using an electrofishing boat, and you'll be happy to know that there are 22 species of fish along the Oakville area in Lake Ontario, and we caught 1,386 fish along Halton's shoreline. So it's certainly an interesting and worthwhile project for us. We also continue with the species at risk monitoring related to red-side dace in the 14 Mile Creek and the Jefferson salamander, and we are able to reconfirm the Jefferson salamander vernal pool breeding areas at the Drumquin Woods ecologically sensitive area. It's quite a list, as I mentioned, and we certainly would like to thank once again Council for their opportunity for us to speak to them tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. And on behalf of Council, there's three things I'd like to mention. I want to congratulate and thank you for the terrific work that you did in helping to stop the expansion of the Nelson Quarry. You know, I can't say enough for how good a job you did there. I think you were key to the victory. A third of our council serves on Conservation Halton, and you named them. Thank you for that. This town takes great pride in its strong support for Conservation Halton. Appreciate your report. Any questions, Councillor? Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, we have a number of delegations. By my count, we have enough for a couple of hours of discussion, information from delegations and possible questions. So let's settle in and enjoy each other's information. Would you call the first delegation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the first delegation is Janet Haslett-Thiel, President of the Joshua Creeks Residents Association, and also representing the Coalition for Community Centers and Parks this evening regarding the draft Parks, Recreation, and Library Facilities Master Plan, which was item 3 of the Community Services Committee meeting.
Welcome, Ms. Haslett-Thiel. I'll give you a second to get organized. I understand you have a number of other community leaders with you, so let's give them all a chance to stand with you. So I understand as part of the plan.
And I have a slide. I'm told if I put it on here, someone can project it.
Technical support will be at your side any second now. Let's just see how fast they are.
No, it's good.
Here comes
Great.
technical support.
Miracles. Hello. Good timing.
Or is this it right here?
This is it. We're good.
All right.
We're good.
We're
Okay,
good to go.
storms aside, we're all good. So good evening. My name's Janet Haslett-Thiel. I am the president of Joshua Creek Residents Association. With me tonight are representatives from the Residents Association that make up the Community Centers Coalition. Our coalition is comprised of every Residents Association in Wards 2 and 3. Joshua Creek Residents Association, West River Residents Association, represented tonight by Blake Poland. Craig Schiller, got the backwards. West Kerr Village, Blake Poland. Chartwell Maple Grove, Danny Morowitz. South Central Oakville Residents Association, Stephen Bobsich. West Harbor couldn't be with us tonight, but they send their support. Coronation Park Residents Association, Hopedale Residents Association, the Oakville Lakeside Residents Association, represented tonight by Boyd Waits. Trafalgar Chartwell Residents Association, represented tonight by Nick Hutchins. We formed our coalition this summer based on the common belief in one key principle, that fair geographic distribution of town community facilities across Oakville must be a standard in determining needs in the Parks, Recreation, and Library Master Plan. We all looked beyond our own neighborhoods and interests to support this important principle and ask that you vote to endorse the plan being presented to you by Parks and Recreation tonight. We're pleased to present you tonight with 1,425 petitions we have gathered from our residents endorsing the following statement. I support the fair geographic distribution of town community facilities across Oakville. I further support the creation of a multi-generational community center, including an indoor pool on the portion of the hospital lands that serves the neighborhoods and families of Southeast Oakville, and accommodation for park areas that serve its neighborhoods and families. I also support the renovation and/or rebuilding of Oakville Arena and Trafalgar Park to include an ice pad as a community center for the neighborhoods in South Central Oakville, including Kerr and Dorval areas. So that's 1,425 people who have signed our petition. We would like to express our deep appreciation for the dialogue the town staff and councillors engaged in during the Parks and Recreation consultation, and their recognition of the views we expressed to them during our many meetings. Thank you for listening and welcoming our participation. We stand together, committed to see the recommendations of a multi-generational community center and the rejuvenation and preservation of Trafalgar Park, including Oakville Arena, through to build. We look forward to participating in the South Central Land Study and collaborating on the design of our community hubs, including the adjoining parks. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your information. Are there any questions, Council? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you call the delegations?
The next delegation is Dan Jalikoff regarding the Gerlach Gardens, item 4 of the Administrative Services Committee agenda.
Mr. Chelikoff? In the interests of everybody's time, if you registered to present to council tonight, could I suggest that you move to the aisle so that when it's your turn, you can come fairly expeditiously? Thank you for your consideration. Mr. Chelikoff, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you. Your Worship.
If you would just pull the mic over, address the microphone, the audience will hear you both here and at home.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship, members of council and members of staff. I'm here to speak to you about Gerlach. As you can see, my position. I've been a resident of Oakville since 1967. I'm trained as an architect and my work is on heritage. I'm frequently hired by municipalities to give opinions on matters just like the Gerlach property. And had I been hired to give an opinion on this one, my opinion would be that the heritage integrity of the property would be deeply harmed by severance of the lands under the house and the studio. I went back to U of T to complete my education 10 years ago, and I did my thesis on lakefront estates in Oakville. And I mention that just so you know that I do have some expertise in this as well as the heritage. How do I just press enter for the next one? Thank you. Okay. The fellow in front of you, his name is Richard Coates. He was born in 1778 in Yorkshire, England. Came over to Canada and was one of the strongest representatives of the arts community in Toronto. By 1831, he was in Oakville at the Gerlach site, but it wasn't Gerlach then. And in fact, he built a mill on the property that is now Gerlach Gardens for threshing and sawing lumber. He also built the first organ for one of our National Historic Sites, the Sharon Temple, as well as oil paintings which are still there. His last act in Oakville around 1860 was to build the organ for St. Jude's Church. Unfortunately, there was a depression about that time. The mill was not making a profit. He closed down and he had to move to a farm north of here and died in 1868. The reason I tell you about him is because I've lived here this long. This is what I do. I didn't know about Richard Coates. My fear is if the integrity of this estate is lost, In 100 years, in 50 years, in 25 years, no one will know who the Gairdners were. And the act of giving that property to the town is one of the most generous, if not the most generous, act of philanthropy I know of in Oakville. What I'm going to tell you now is the history of that land between the time that Coates was there and the time that McKendrick, who built Gairloch, was there in 1922. Oakville, from Clarkson through to Burlington Bay, was the fruit basket of Canada. So it was all farmland until about 1908. At that time, estates started to be built. And this is Gairloch as it was in McKendrick's time. I won't go into the details unless anyone asks me about them, but what I want to explain is that before the road was paved between Hamilton and Toronto between 1900 and 1908, Oakville was famous for making masts. If you look at the old maps of Oakville, the first ones, the land is actually called up as the King's Mastings, because that's what we did. We milled lumber and sent it to England to serve the Royal Navy. We grew fruit, and we had the harbor. That was the genesis of Oakville, and that was our identity. Our identity completely changed with the advent of the estates, and that was predicated on the paving of the road. By 1908, Ryrie was here, the Hindmarshes were here. Ryrie built Edgemere, the Hindmarshes built Shorewood, which is long gone. Cox built the Ennisclare estate in 1910. The Burden estate, which is known as Raymar, was around 1924. You get the point. There was a vast string of estates, and Gairloch is one of the last estates intact, and it's already in public hands. We already own it. How am I doing? Oh, not too bad. This is Mr. Gairdner. This is the fellow who donated the estate to the town in 1971. He came, he came to Oakville by 1918. By 1923, he had started a stock brokerage. He must have known what he was doing because he held on to the money through the Depression. And I guess in the 1950s, he developed pretty severe arthritis. As a result of that, at that time, he donated $500,000 to a foundation to award scientists in Canada money and bursaries to continue their work as prizes for their research. This is the Gairdner Foundation. It has actually sponsored many Nobel Prize winners. This was another of Gairdner's philanthropic activities. He also funded the Gairdner Fine Arts Building at Mount Allison University, which I've seen, and gave us Gairloch in '71. Final slide. This is the house as it is today. This was probably taken this spring. I'm going to give you 7 reasons that I believe this estate should not be sold. In your agenda, you've got 3 options that were voted on at the last administrative committee meeting. And I spoke then again, and I said I would very much like to have the 3rd option removed from the table. I believe that selling the estate is wrong, just wrong, not yet thought through, and a terrible move that is irreversible. And in heritage, one of the criteria for good heritage work is reversibility. If we sell this thing, it's irreversible. The intactness of the estate is gone. Reason 1 is moral and ethical considerations. Oakville accepted the gift of this estate on Gairdner's terms. We should honor those terms. We should maintain this is 2, we should maintain the integrity of the artifact, a whole estate with the house as the climax. I say that because as you walk this estate, you go from Lakeshore Road, there's a circuit that goes around the house. Most people go right up to the house in the front, sit there and look out at the lake. If this is in private hands, you can't do that. You can't feel the experience of standing on the terrace of the house. 4th reason, without ownership, future revitalizations are impossible. 5th, the town has an opportunity here to set a very high standard as stewards of heritage buildings instead of sellers of heritage buildings. 6, to many this is sacred space. Without access to the house, the genius loci is lost. That's the spirit of the place. And the old town has suffered too much already. People of my vintage and older are seeing and I know this is not your responsibility, but so many houses have gone down. The old high school, I know that there's been town effort to stabilize that. I know the town has been on side with even retaining some of the schools, but nonetheless, to those of us who grew up here and who have family going back generations, it seems as though the old town is falling apart. I would look to you to help stabilize, not accelerate the rate of change. The last thing I'll say is I'll probably go back to, that one to show you. This painting, which Oakville owns, it's part of the galleries, I imagine it came with the house, was painted by Lilias Torrance Newton. Now, that's significant because she was the first Canadian artist to paint the King and Prince Philip and the Queen Elizabeth. She was known to have painted most of society, and Mr. Gairdner was part of that. He was so much a part of this estate culture, and he chose to donate this to the town. I think we should honor that decision and keep it. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you for your information. Questions? Thank you, sir. The next delegation, please.
The next delegation is Marcia Small, Vice Chair and Board Member of the Downtown Oakville Business Improvement Area, regarding the Downtown Oakville parking incentives for the 2012 holiday season, item 6 of the Community Services Committee meeting.
Welcome, Ms. Small. Council
Thank
looks
you.
forward to your information. And you have a silent chorus. It's a fad tonight. I see the people behind you.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship and Council, for hearing us this evening on this issue. I would also like to take a moment to thank Dave Bloomer and Hanya and the people in the Works Department because they have sat with me and Leslie and others at the BIA to discuss parking options for downtown Oakville. And they have been very accommodating to any requests for meetings and have been extremely helpful, and I thank them for that. I really feel that they're approachable, and I think it's something to be said for the town. But what I would like to present tonight is the fact that we came to the town last year looking to see what we could do to possibly have some free parking for downtown because of the recession and the tough times that it is for people to shop in downtown and have to pay the parking, et cetera, et cetera. So we recognized last year that it was going to be $140,000 of monies to accommodate that, which we knew we did not have in the budget. So we thought, fine, so for 2012, we'll get early on to this and see what we can do for this 2012 Christmas. So the last time we met with the town regarding this issue of possible parking somewhere that we could have possibly free parking or some solution to the parking situation that we have in downtown. And where that led me and the BIA to was the fact that there was a huge number of options that were available, possibly, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, weekends, some lots, not other lots. And we recognized that we did not really have any money in the budget that would accommodate putting any of our monies that we had aside for that. So going through the list from our last meeting, there was an option that was put available to us through sitting through that meeting with Mr. Bloomer and Hanya, that lot 6A, which is the old post office, there's 31 parking spots there, and my own personal permit is in lot 6. So I walk through that lot every single day since it opened, and there's literally, I'm swearing here, 2 to 3 cars a day in that lot. And so it came at that meeting that we thought it would be a great idea for the citizens of Oakville to recognize that that lot's there. It's obviously underutilized. So we thought, great, we can promote that lot. We can let the town recognize and the citizens who shop downtown that there is a lot here. There's 31 spots, and great. For those who are concerned with having some free parking over Christmas, those citizens would be very keen to find where there's a free spot. They would now discover where it is, how to get into it, and use it. So come January of 2013, then the town would now have that lot promoted because the BIA and all of us merchants would be there to promote that. So what we're looking to do. We're not looking for, this is nothing that's ongoing. This is just strictly for this year, for this Christmas only, because we're still in a terrible recession. The businesses are hurting, and citizens keep saying, well, there's nowhere to park, and I hate to park, and I'm a senior, and I can't afford it. We hear lots of stories, as they do everywhere in Oakville. But because we approached the town and we were looking for solutions, this is the option that we took. And the proposed estimate of income from that lot is approximately $5,000 that town would lose potentially. And I'm telling you that that lot right now has 2 to 3 cars in it in a day. So I'm very happy to answer any questions that anybody may have for me on that.
Thank you for your information. Councillor Dudek has a question.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Just to gain a better understanding, originally when the request was put forward to council to have the old post office property used as a parking area for downtown merchants, from what I recall, the studies that we had currently at that time indicated there was not a parking shortage, albeit your customers are complaining and saying that they want something closer and they want to be in the proximity. What steps did the BIA take thus far to promote the use of that parking lot, given that they were quite insistent that they wanted to have additional parking in the immediate area?
Well, as many stores as possible, to my knowledge, have just started telling their customers that it's there. But what happens when they come around, it's a one-way street. So they see the sign, and they, unless you're a long-time resident of Oakville, you don't really recognize that you have to go down 2 more blocks. You have to make a left, and then you have to go down another one-way street to access it. So unless you're a longtime citizen, people don't recognize how to get in there. It's one way out. You can't go in off of Church Street. So it's like it sits there, and it really has to be discovered.
Okay.
We actually, as the BIA, quite some time ago, had when we knew that the town was buying the post office, had said, wow, what a great spot. Can we make parking spots out of that? We were all for that. We were all behind that, to support that. And actually, we're in total support of making it in permanent parking for people who would have permits. That would be wonderful to do, because now you're going to have some guaranteed income come 2013. I know that the parking study should be finished now. There's a survey that happened over the last 2 months, and from my understanding, that should be complete as of the end of this month in another couple of days.
That's correct. That's
Yes.
why I prefaced
Yes.
the fact that the decision that was made was based on another parking study,
Yes.
not the current one that's currently
Right.
underway. So,
Yes.
Right. My question, though, was what promotion, and from what I gather from your remarks, you're only just now starting to promote it, is that
Oh, no,
correct?
as soon as it became available, we were telling people, because people can park there all day. We're letting them know, like, if you have to go to lunch and get your hair done and do all these things, go there, because you can put in for 8 hours.
Okay. And I heard, and I don't know, maybe Susan can answer this, but she made reference during the committee meeting to a token program that some of the merchants, that's not merchant-wise, like business-wise, that's up to the individual merchant, is it, to undergo that token, free token to park in front of their business?
Right, that's a program that the BIA downtown has had for a couple of years, and all of the merchants, any merchant or offices, it doesn't have to be retail front, it could be anybody in the zone, it can be privileged to buying those tokens to pass on to their customers, and that's something that we've been promoting for some time.
So they purchase the tokens
Yes.
from the town,
Yes.
but provide that to their customers?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no others, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
information. Was that Nick, Leslie, Kathy, and Susie with you there?
No.
No? Susie, for sure, I think I recognize her. All right, Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
The next delegation listed is Nick Barakas, Treasurer and Board Member of the Downtown BIA, regarding the same issue, but I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to attend tonight.
Mr. Barikas. Going once, going twice. The next delegation.
Listed delegation is Leslie Invidiata, board member of the Downtown Oakville BIA. I guess the question that the mayor was requesting was whether all the members who listed are going to speak individually.
No, Marcy, it's one voice for all of us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So does that hold true for Kathy Thomas? Thank you. And Susie Godfroy? Thank you. And that brings us to Philip Martin.
It does, Mr. Mayor. The next delegation is Philip Martin regarding Gairloch Gardens, item 4 of the Administrative Services Committee meeting of October 23rd.
Mr. Martin, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors and fellow residents. I wish to speak on the building of a Gardner legacy. It was brought to my attention today that you were going to discuss the Gairloch Gardens, and it was brought to my attention by the Chartwell Maple Grove Association and the Ennisclare Drive Residents Association. I thank both of those parties for the notice. These are my comments, my own. I don't have a group, but I'm sure I speak for a number of people. I'm an immediate neighbour of Gairloch Gardens, and I share a fence with them. And I share a fence with the building under discussion. First point is that local input has either been ignored or not actively sought. I attended the 2007 meeting, but I've not heard anything from that meeting. I was one of the 10 people that were referred to. I think there were about that number, and there was no follow-up. We were told we were going to be provided with with notes of that meeting, but there was no follow-up at all. And I haven't moved. I live on Ennisclare Drive. Second point is that I would ask, what have we learned from the current occupants of that building, the Oakville Galleries, since the report is silent on their experiences? Also, it says that the galleries have outgrown Gairloch Estate. I'm not sure what they mean by that. That's kind of a catch-all phrase that doesn't really say very much, because that's a pretty big site. Second point there is that a significant report is due in January 2013. That's 2 months away from now. And I'm not sure what the rush is to bring this forward in the absence of that report. It would be interesting to find out what Oakville Gallery's intent is to mesh it in with the site. There are 3 alternatives being presented by the report, but I believe that we can expand that. Can't the original concept be given some encouragement? Mr. Gardner, I think, was far-sighted in terms of trying to maintain an art facility on the site. I was lucky enough to be in New York a couple of weeks ago, and one of the world's famous parks is abutted by one of the world's famous art galleries. The Met is right on the park, and it attracts a number of people. I think we have an opportunity to provide a mini facility along those lines. As a neighbour, I would encourage an artistic concept rather than a bed and breakfast concept that's spoken about in the proposal. We have too few park areas in East Oakville. That's already been mentioned by several other delegates this evening, and it's a shame to lose the site to private development. That would be a tragedy. I don't see it happening. And by the way, there's already a small consortium on Ennisclare that's ready to put forward a bid on that property should you put it on the market, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much for the promising development.
Let me point out that I think here's an opportunity to do something lasting, to build on the Gardner legacy. I believe a 4th option exists, to use the site for a new facility more in keeping with the bequest. It would involve more investment than the $1 million, but it fits the livable Oakville plan. I know of no other lakeside estate bequest of this size, and I think that was confirmed by the earlier speaker. So this is an opportunity. It's going to be a unique opportunity in our lifetime. There may be one that comes up later, but this is a unique opportunity, and we shouldn't miss it. So I believe there are opportunities to develop it. I'm not that much in favour of the old building, which I believe is actually getting pretty ramshackled. Those people that choose to go and have a look at it, it's getting pretty neglected. And I'm fearful that once we abandon that property, or the Oakville Galleries abandons that property, then I don't know what's going to happen to it, because it's not guarded, it's not kept, it's going to be an abandoned building, basically. And I think that's something the town needs to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In your remarks, it became clear to me that you've read the report,
I have.
and the report basically says we want all options studied, right? I would respectfully suggest that your fourth option fits neatly in the first option, which is to explore how to keep it and use it. So
I think it is, but it doesn't really, I didn't really see the addressing of maybe a major expansion of the project by.
the commissioner who's on the hook for the report is sitting very close to you, and he heard your suggestion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your information.
Appreciate it.
There are many opportunities before us in Southeast Oakville, as this meeting has clearly already shown. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Is Daniela Morowitz, again regarding the Gerlach Galleries, item 4 of the Administrative Services Committee agenda.
Ms. Morowitz, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. As was mentioned earlier, related to the Parks and Rec study, I'm the president of the Chartwell Maple Grove Residents Association and represent the 1,600 households immediately surrounding the Gerlach property, if you want to look at it that way. Needless to say, Chartwell Maple Grove is very concerned about the report on the Gerlach Estate House. We fully concur with the comments made by Mr. Chalikoff regarding the importance of the heritage aspect of this site. And I am here tonight to state that we find the third option, to sever and sell the estate house, unacceptable. We believe that the town has a social and a moral obligation to retain and maintain a very rare public heritage property and structure. We find it hard to believe that the town cannot or will not find a suitable use for this site. We sincerely ask that this council not move to finance the future by sacrificing our past. Surely we can do better than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your information and your exhortation.
Are there any questions?
I don't see any. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Mr. Mayor, that completes the delegations listed for this evening.
Thank you to everyone who came out to share information with Council. That brings us to our standing committee reports, the Community Services Committee and the Administrative Services Committee. I expect there'll be some separations. Councillor Robinson?
Well, Your Worship, I was going to move the approval of the community services.
That's perfectly in order. Is there a second? Councillor Demoff. Now, separations are in order. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to separate item 3 and number 6 from the Community Services Committee. That's being the Park Rec Master Plan and the Downtown BIA parking, as well as item 4 from the Administrative Services Committee.
And number 4 is the Gerlach, I assume? All right. Any other separations? Councillor Giddings has anticipated everybody's interest. All right. Let me then call the vote on the motion to approve the balance. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Those reports are adopted with the exception of number 3 and number 6 in CSC and number 4 in ASC. Number 3, Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Your Worship. Seeing as we have a fair number of people here from wards 1 and 2 and 3 that have delegated this evening about the Parks Rec Master Plan, Commissioner Leonardo took us through a presentation last week, and there was some new information that came through to council. I'm not sure whether all the residents are aware of it, so I'd ask that Commissioner Leonardo bring us and the residents up to date.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to move to the
Commissioner,
podium.
just before you begin, for the clerk's benefit, Councillor Robinson, I heard you to move both reports. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk?
That would be better. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to move to the center podium as I have some slides that I could illustrate. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Giddings did ask some questions for some clarity around, specifically around the distribution of playground and splash pads throughout the town. First of all, let me indicate that you do have a memo that came from staff as of October 26th. And the first thing I want to draw your attention that we do want to make a minor correction to the master plan on page Roman numeral 6 of the master plan, or page 56 of the staff report. There's reference that the around the splash pads which states that splash pads may be provided on a park-specific basis south of the QEW. That actually should have read south of Dundas Street. Now, with respect to the questions that were raised by Councillor Giddings, there's some concerns that perhaps we did not include all of the playgrounds throughout wards 2 and 3. The drawing that you have above shows the distribution of playgrounds only on town parkland at this time. We did not show any of the school sites on there, including the playgrounds that were located at Chisholm as well as on Brantwood. Now, having said that, as you can see, there is a bit of a gap in this particular area in southeast Oakville. When we do include Brantwood and Chisholm, that gap is a little bit smaller, but essentially none of the playgrounds that were on school properties were included. As you know, we have a program with a number of school sites for both school and parent associations, where we partner and provide opportunities for the community to enhance our playground program, and so those sometimes go on school sites. But rest assured that the master plan does provide us with an 800-meter distribution plan, and the master plan helps us guide where the gaps are, and we will then react accordingly. Now, the other question that was asked was specifically around the distribution of splash pads. And in your package this evening, you also have a map that looks like that. Now, this drawing shows not only the splash pads, but also all the outdoor pools. It's really an aquatic distribution. And as you can see clearly, we have some gaps in College Park and East Lake. And clearly there are other areas that we will look at as the 10-year capital forecast get developed, and those will be addressed. I think Councillor Mark Grant suggested that we do it right, and I think my response at committee was indeed south of Dundas we will do it right as well. Mr. Mayor, I hope that clarifies the questions that were asked by Councillor Giddings, and certainly we would be pleased to respond to any questions that he or any other members of council may have.
Let's check with the councillor. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. So, is there any other matter to detain us on item 3? Councillor Adams and Councillor Grant. Pardon?
I have a follow-up question of our Commissioner.
You're on.
On the issue of playground equipment on school lots and our initiatives to continue working with the school boards in placement of parks, structured playgrounds on school properties, can you provide more detail as to what the plans are to continue that program and how it would be impacted in cases where there's surplus school sites? So either school sites that have playgrounds and are actively used, or those that don't but have active playground space.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think, first of all, let me explain that the playground for a school site is an as requests come forward, each one gets evaluated. We do allocate X number of dollars. I don't have the figure off the top of my head on how much we have each year for those programs, but we work very closely where the community groups do some fundraising and then a playground structure gets put in. As those playgrounds are replaced, and we work very closely with the schools to do that. Now, in the case of Chisholm and Brantwood, our approach would be that we would have no net lost in the number of playgrounds in that area. So if there isn't room for a playground on either two sites, we certainly would try to find another location for them.
And when the original draft came forward, a number of councillors asked whether we could improve upon the way in which we work with school boards. What plans are there to deal with that question that was asked?
We're certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor, in constant dialogue with the schools. Unfortunately, lately, the schools boards have taken the position that that really is an area that they're not involved in, but we're always in constant dialogue with them through our reciprocal agreements and the meetings that we have with other municipalities in the Halton region.
I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Grant?
I was merely trying to assist my colleague in getting recognized by the chair.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I was just helping Councillor Adams be recognized by the chair.
He was waving you down for me.
All right, thank you. Then I will look to council for a mover and seconder for item 3. Councillor Giddings moves and Councillor Demoff seconds. Now, we're going to pass it with an implicit change here, changing QEW to Dundas, right?
With the correction.
So in the end, we'll say as noted by the clerk or as amended?
Mr. Mayor, we'll include with the correction to the report.
So we'll
within
use
the
as
motion.
noted by the clerk, which is the standing permission for the clerk to change small errors. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That does carry. Councillor Giddings, are you leading off on number 6? Councillor Giddings.
Where your mic is. Thank you, Councillor Bird, for the team effort. At Community Services last week, we talked at length about the request from the Downtown BIA, as well as the work that was done by staff in terms of coming up with a number of different options that were available. And so I separated it tonight, and representatives from the BIA came out to talk about it. Our economy is not strong. It's the make or break time of year from mid-November up until the end of Christmas, when a lot of the shopkeepers will realize whether they've had a profitable year or not. We have a number of stores that are moving for a number of reasons. We have some that have gone out of business. And the reason that staff worked with the BIA and they made the request was, number one, to promote this new parking lot, and number two, to do whatever they can to bring people to downtown Oakville. They have an aggressive campaign that'll be starting to bring people to downtown Oakville as well as to Oakville overall. And so I'm asking for the support to support the BIA. Thank you.
So, Councillor Giddings, what are you suggesting?
We've got a shared deal. What I think you're suggesting is to defeat the motion that's on the floor and approve the staff recommendation as presented to the committee. And
All
the
right.
staff recommendation is to promote parking lot 6A, not about the entire request of the BIA, and for the reasons noted in the staff report. And quite frankly, they made sense to me. This allows the opportunity to get some long-term parkers to free up some parking space that people may not be aware about, and it'll also to utilize rather, because it'll free up the hopefully the more convenient parking spots and the ones that are in most demands, which is the ones along Lakeshore Road in front of the stores. So if we can reutilize this and increase the parking and increase the churn, which I understand what they're trying to do, get more people to come downtown, more cars, and promote the downtown, that this will help. And it's only for until parking lot 6A gets up to its full utilization, because it's the first one. It's relatively new. Most people don't know, and because the building is there, a lot of people still believe that it's still private parking.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dudek, before you begin, let me get the item 6 on the floor so that we can debate it and vote it down or up. So I need a mover and seconder for the committee report. Councillor Dudek moves it, and Councillor Adams seconds it. And Councillor Dudek, you have the floor.
Thank you. I moved this at committee, and that was to deny the application. As many of you know, I serve on the Kerr Village BIA. We also have vacancies. We also have problems. We have not approached the town in order to subsidize the parking situation in our immediate BIA financially. I have problems about this from numerous levels, mainly when we first looked at the parking issue. The parking study, as I mentioned earlier, did not indicate there was a parking problem. And even though that was the case, we still went ahead and purchased, which I thought was a great idea, the property in question, the old Canada Post property. The thing people fail to remember, and it gave me concern at the time of us moving the purchase of that property, this is temporary parking. There is no assumption, there is no motion that I'm aware of that says this is going to be a permanent parking lot. Why would we be promoting parking on a parking lot that council has not decided is going to be a permanent parking lot? It doesn't make sense to me. It's a way of sort of masking the real agenda, and that is to supplement, albeit merchants in the downtown BIA, to enable them to spend funds in another avenue, and that's their choice. But we all have budgets as a BIA, and we all spend them in the best way possible, and I don't feel comfortable supplementing something of this nature. So I, again, move denial.
Alrighty, Councillor Demoff. Councillor Demoff.
I agree with Councillor Duddick and would add that we always hear issues of people not being able to park in front of stores, whether it's in Kerr Village or Bronte or downtown. In the interest of fairness, I don't think it's fair to choose one BIA over others. I know Kerr Village would welcome free parking in their area. Bronte, you don't have to pay for parking. So, but, you know, retailers there would probably love to have some kind of a promotion going on. So in terms of fairness, I don't think we have 3 BIAs in Oakville, and I don't think it's fair to single one out for a promotion over the other 2. So I agree with Councillor Duddick on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Demoff. Over here, I think I have Councillor Adams and Councillor Khan. Is anyone else over here? Councillor Grant.
I don't have any comments. I was simply seconding it.
All right, Councillor Khan then.
I'm going to be supporting the motion that's put forward by Councillor Giddings and Councillor Byrd. I think that we need to appreciate the circumstances, the economy. What they're asking for is a temporary relief. As most of you know, I do work downtown, and I hear my friends downtown all the time coming to Oakville, specifically to go shopping in that area. And I think that it brings all sorts of externalities, all sorts of benefits. And given that it's a temporary relief, I will be supporting that motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Grant and Councillor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. At CSC, I had actually supported Councillor Giddings and the staff motion at the time. I understand that it does seem unfair that we're supporting one BIA and not another, but the fact is that the downtown BIA did ask for this and did pursue it. And as much as I think that we need to support all businesses in Oakville fairly, what's good for business is good for business in Oakville. It's good for Oakville. And I think it's important that in this case, even though it's just one BIA that's benefiting, it's all of Oakville that benefits from the influx of cash from people coming in and shopping. And you never know, if in future this works, then we can look towards Kerr Street and start promotions there. We can look at how this could work on a larger scale throughout Oakville. But for the time being, it is the downtown BIA that looked at this, pursued it, got the ask, got the support of staff, and anything that brings money into Oakville, I think, is a good idea. So I will be supporting Councillor Giddings and Councillor Byrd.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Councillor Knoll.
I have a question for staff before I determine how I'm going to vote on this.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And I wasn't obviously at CSC. I was at our marathon ASC meeting, and so I wasn't privy to the full debate. But I do understand the perspective of the ward councillors for the Kerr area, but I have a question for staff. This is a request from the downtown BIA. Did we get a similar request from the Kerr Street BIA?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we just had the one request from the downtown.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't consider such a request from the Kerr Street BIA should they choose to submit one?
Are you handing the application?
Well, I have free parking.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly if we were requested to look at it by council or the Kerr Village BIA, we would certainly look at it. I think what we were trying to present to you in this case was an opportunity, maybe not necessarily a unique opportunity, but unusual in that we've got a brand new parking lot that is not well used, and we were trying to work with the BIA to have a mutual benefit to this.
Well, thank you for those comments, and Your Worship, I'll make some just brief remarks. I'll be not be supporting the resolution by Councillor Duddick and Demoff, although I'm very sympathetic with their perspective. I would encourage them, or particularly Councillor Duddick, to potentially go back to her board and suggest a similar kind of request on the part of Kerr Street. But having said that, I will be not supporting that and happy to support should there be a subsequent motion by our friends from Ward 3.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other first-time speakers? Councillor Bird, you already spoke. I'm looking for first-timers.
So hopefully second time would be come.
I'll put you on the second-time list. Let me just check and make sure there's no other first-timers. All right. I'd like to be a first-time speaker, and I'd like to pass the chair to Acting Mayor Councillor Robinson for that purpose.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to support Councillor Duddick and Councillor Demoff's motion. And I'm going to call on all of you to remember that when we agreed to buy the post office, we agreed that we were going to buy it out of parking revenues, and that we were going to do that so that we didn't hit the taxpayer for it. And if we give $7,500, which is what, or $7,400, which is what I remember the staff report to say, to this BIA, and encumber ourselves with a sense of fairness to give a similar amount to each of the other BIAs, we're over $21,000, and we're marching in the different direction than the one we set out on when we agreed to pay what we paid for the old post office building. I also would call your attention to the fact that at Christmas is when I have to park on the top level of the parking garage, which tells me that there's no shortage of people coming downtown at Christmas, and thus, in my mind, I'm having a lot of trouble understanding how this assists anybody. In other words, the desired outcome, which is more people shopping in downtown Oakville at Christmas, I'm not sure could be accommodated in the first place. I mean, Christmas is when it's good, or when it's its best. So for the reason that we've already spoken for the money, and we can't afford to be departing from our funding plan, I can't support this. I also call your attention to the fact that every BIA has its own taxing power. They have a levy power of their own. They recently raised it. They're asking us to pass money from the general taxpayer to them in place of going to their own tax levy. And we're under constant pressure from our residents and our taxpayers to restrict and moderate tax increases, if not hold the line. So to remind you of a fairly interesting event and one of the debates in 2010, the chamber debate started off with everybody talking about how they were going to cut, and question number 2 was how much you're going to spend, and everybody competed with how much they were going to spend, and all I could say was, look how fast we left the cutting part of the meeting and went to the spending part of the meeting. So I would urge you to hold the line on this. When I review the financial statements of the BIAs, it's my impression that the downtown BIA has $7,400 if they really want this, and the real test of whether it's of any value to them is whether they're willing to pay for it. So I would urge you to turn this back. It looks to me like maybe failing in my plea as I count the noses, but I have to say it in the name of our overall financial position. So, Councillor Robinson, thank you for taking my place so that I could make those remarks. We'll go to second-time speakers, Councillor Duddick and then Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, you hit upon a few of the points I was going to make as well. And just to be mindful of the fact that why the BIAs were, what shall I say, created to begin with, was the business improvement, or the merchants in that particular area had an interest in promoting, along with the town, the businesses in their area. And as such, the town of Oakville already assists, whether through streetscaping and other various programs, to defray the total costs that are associated with the various BIAs, whether it be road closures or things of that nature. Again, I don't want to repeat myself, but that would be the reasons why I would say sometimes we have to look at the fact that we're saying to one BIA, because you're playing by the rules and because you're trying to work within your means and you're trying to, hold the line on expenses, you're not coming to the taxpayers to supplement that. So I have a problem with that.
Thank you, Councillor Duddick. Councillor Bird?
Yeah, thank you. This is an interesting one because, quite frankly, in my opinion, everybody who spoke is right from their point of views. But I want to quite frankly, we don't provide free parking, supposedly. We want paid parking, but we do on Lakeshore Road, but only in Bronte. That's the same road. We charge people to park in front of the stores at Lakeshore Road downtown. If there was a BIA or not, the meters were there before. Come back. The issue of this parking lot which was as a result of primarily the original parking plan was to build a second parking garage. This is the only parking spot now in downtown Oakville. We know why we paid the spot. Its strategic location and the future that is on the table, if we were looking at to expand the actual parking number of parking spots downtown, would be on this site. It strikes me that a lot of people, that unless they read the Beaver and because the post office is still there, it's a prime location that it's underutilized because I don't think a lot of people know it's there. And the mayor said he had to park on the 5th floor to shop downtown. Perhaps if people knew that, and this is certainly more convenient to the center of downtown Oakville, if you want to call it to the town square, 1 block from the town Christmas tree where we're talking about here, if it's utilized, that for a short period of time, and a period of time would be the most benefit. If we get people familiar with that site, when it comes time, in my opinion, that we're going to utilize that site more efficiently by building a parking garage, and perhaps maybe if it works well, we may be able to free up some parking lot retail space on parking lot 7 across the road because we have a viable alternative. So we're trying to make that is get the fully function on that site to the loss of parking that we had a year or so ago was parking lot 7. Parking lot 7 was taken over, and strangely enough, it's approximately the same number of spots that were in 7 that are here. So it was forget about the idea that somebody's getting something for free that they shouldn't have, although I understand going forward. But I remember Kerr Street used to be free in the town parking lot, quite frankly, because we saved money by providing free parking. What are you talking about? The province of Ontario introduced a number of years ago, I think it was called the commercial concentration tax. And if you had a parking spot, you were charging, I think, $1.25 per day, whether it was used or not. So the only way to get around that as a community, some people who can remember that, because there were some underutilized parking spots in that thing, it was actually costing the town money to try to collect money, to make them payable. So we did convert them to free. But once the commercial concentration, the lunacy of that, once you saw it was costing us money rather than generating money for the parking fund, because it was the parking fund that was paying for people not to use the parking spot. You got to take a look at it, how it was worded. So we converted those to free parking spots. It was a little difficulty reinstituting the paid parking because people like free, a good thing. But if we're going to have this as this parking lot and building its full potential, we have to have people use it now so they can realize how convenient it'll be to their business. It's only a couple of 5 minutes or 4-minute walk to my store or place of business. And this is a prime location, which is being underutilized. Let's try this to see if it can get to its full potential. Even the 32 parking spots, if we can bring that up, and it's a short-term investment. I think the staff made a good argument, but quite frankly, I don't think the parking, they're not asking for what they would really like is free parking all over town or relaxed enforcement or all this. They're always saying, okay, let's put our heads together. How can we get this thing that we paid an awful lot of money for it and have it reach its full potential? And this is the first thing. And I remember one thing, the Highway 407, I think when they started 407, it was free for a while. The people got used to using it. Then they made it start charging for it. So, and it also has an advantage. This is an opportunity to have in this parking lot longer term than the other meters. The other meters, I think, are 2 hours. This is an opportunity to have longer ones, so if people are familiar with it. So let's try to help the shoppers and the parkers and everyone to get this thing going. $10 million and to get, which we paid for the spot, I think it was for the deal, for the parking fund is paid for it, and for $7,400 to get full utilization sounds to me like a good deal.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. I have Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Demoff, and Councillor Elgar. And I guess, Councillor Demoff, would you, as a second-timer, maybe fall after Councillor Elgar, a first-timer? So first-timers, Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm privileged, I believe, to be the treasurer of the Bronte BIA, and at this time I can assure Council that we will not be asking for any relief because we don't charge for parking in Bronte. Also, I want to confirm Councillor Bird's statement about the ETR 407, which was free for several months before actually we started to get charged for that, and people got used to the idea. It became a habit as I was using it myself, and then suddenly you get a bill in the mail, and it was used, and the development is still ongoing. But, excuse me, my question to staff, if I may, is since we introduced the pay and display meters along Lakeshore, have we seen any significant increase in the parking revenue?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, without being able to give you exact numbers, I would say anecdotally, I can tell you, yes, we have enjoyed some improved number of parking spaces and turnover. So it has been a benefit to the previous.
Great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Elgar.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of interesting listening to all sides of the debate. And I was going one way and listening, and then after Councillor Bird talked, I realized that, in fact, the only way that people are going to find out about the free parking is if they come downtown and park their car and go and shop. And I'm thinking, based on that, if they come downtown and go to shop anyway and they hear from the shop owners, I would hope the shop owners would still market those spaces. And therefore, we don't have to give it for free, and they're only a block away, as Councillor Bird said. So I would hope that it's all-day parking. It's a pretty good deal, and I would really hope that everybody would support Councillor Duddick's motion to move forward and still charge, but still market it. It's a real opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Demoff.
I just had a quick question for staff, actually. Is it the intention that we will permanently use this lot for parking? Because I got the impression from the way Councillor Bird was talking that this was going to be permanent parking and therefore we needed to promote it. I didn't think we'd decided that yet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. I think Councillor Bird has reflected on some of the discussions that have transpired since 1997 when we first identified this as a desirable property that we would buy for parking. But when the decision came to buy the property earlier this year, I think it was quite clear from the council decision that we'd be ruling out a lot of other uses probably before there was a final decision about whether it would be a permanent parking lot or not. And the Downtown Cultural Hub study, which is going on, will probably be part of that decision-making process.
So just for clarity, Council hasn't taken a decision on the permanent use of the building, and since Council prides itself on vigorous public consultation, it'd probably be just a touch premature to be deciding that till we've gone to the people and thoroughly ventilated its future use. I think that exhausts all speakers, and it's, oh, wait, Councillor Khan.
It's my one last ditch effort to convert you non-believers into this. And I agree with the mayor, that we need to stick to our guns, and he said, hold the line. We've defined a long-term vision of where we want to be. We have a goal that we want to achieve, but that doesn't mean that we head towards that goal with blinders on and avoid all sorts of circumstances that might come up. We're going to have different periods of times where we're in a recession, and we're going to have different marketing strategies. We need to take that into account. I've often said this. I've said that our staff is the brains behind this town. They tell us, they allow us to follow the bylaws, our policies, our regulations. But this council is the heart. We get to look at externalities, factors that our staff might not look at. Over here, I believe this is a win-win-win situation. The BIA wins, the retailers win, and the town of Oakville wins because we promote Oakville. This is $7,400 at best. You've heard $5,000. We've spent more time discussing things that are millions of dollars. This is $7,400, an opportunity to promote the town of Oakville. And I'd urge you to pass the motion that might be submitted by Councillor Giddings and Bird.
Councillor Adams.
I disagree, and I'd like a recorded vote, please.
All right. Anybody else? In that case, those in favor of the motion by Councillor Dudek and Demoff, please rise to be named. Councillor Adams, Councillor Elgar, Mayor Burton, Councillor Demoff, Councillor Dudek, Councillor Robinson, and Councillor Johnston. Those opposed? Councillor Khan, Councillor Grant, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Giddings, and Councillor Bird. Councillor Dudek, your motion carries. All right, that brings us to item 4 on Administrative Services Committee. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Your Worship. I asked for separation on the ASC number 4, the Gerlach motion. I very much appreciated the comments and history and confirmation from Mr. Chalikoff in terms of what a gem we have here in Oakville. And from the sounds of it, it's one of the last. In the staff report, it says that the town is not legally bound to keep the property. That we have the legal right to sever and sell the property. And while I agree we may have the legal right, I don't think we have the moral right to sever the building from the gardens and sell it off. I think it sends the wrong message on so many levels, whether it be to the Gardner family that donated it, whether it be future families that may consider such a gift to the town and the town people of Oakville. I think it sends a strong message that their gifts could be used as a mutual fund or an investment that we can sell off as we see fit. And so I asked that we vote that down, and if successful, I will put a motion through deleting option 3 from the staff report.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Other speakers? Councillor Bird.
Yeah, I'll support that. That's exactly one of the motions. I think it was actually the first the issue to include the sale option, which is option the 3 was asked to be removed. It was separated on a separate vote by the committee, and I supported the removal of that option, as did Councillor Damoff. I know there's not recorded votes, but it lost. So I'm still of that opinion. Share it with my colleague. I share it with Mr. Chalikoff, and quite frankly, everyone else that has spoken on this issue today, since it raised its, I guess it came up a couple of years ago at Budget Committee, the idea of developing options for Gerlach, plus the possible disposing of the site, and the angst that's created, and to remove the possible sale of the thing, I think that's a council decision. I think we can shut that down and recognize the gem and the gift that Mr. Gardner gave this town, and develop suitable option for it going forward. To consider failing to sell it off, I think you're in for. We'll spend more time looking at how much money we're going to make versus what the value of that property is, and I just am appalled by even considering it. I supported the removal then, and I'm pleased that we have the opportunity to stay with that position here tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. Others? Councillor Khan? Councillor?
Again, I agree with Councillor Giddings and Bird on this. That's twice in a meeting. I think that's unheard of. But, you know, some things do have intangible value, and not all things in this town can be measured by the bottom line. And I agree with their sentiments expressed so far.
Councillor Elgar.
Yeah, I have to make 50-50 tonight. I think I agree also with the two councillors, what they're proposing. This is a huge gift we received. And I'm just wondering, when the deal was done, were there any conditions the Gardners put on the deal when they gave the land to the town? Can staff answer that in more detail for everybody?
The land was given to the town, and it was Mr. Gardner's wish in the will that it be used to foster contemporary art or the display of contemporary art.
I think that's important to remember, because actually it's not even this house. It has to do with what I'm noticing happening across the country, in Ontario anyway. When you get down to a lot of churches are being sold, and people are putting stained glass windows from people like 100 years ago, where they put all this money to make it look beautiful, and the church is sold and the window's gone. And I think that, you know, we got to be careful and keep our heritage. So I will be supporting the councillors in Ward 3 on this item.
Councillor DeMoff.
As Councillor Bird mentioned, we supported removing option 3 at ASC, and I don't think we should even be discussing it. We're not deciding tonight what to do with the property, but I don't think that that should even be an option that we should be wasting our staff's time with. So I'll be, along with my Ward 3 colleagues, supporting them on this.
Thank you, Councillor DeMoff. Anyone else? Councillor Robinson, would you like to take the chair?
Certainly, thank you, Your Worship. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Well, it's our procedure by law. As I said at committee, we are not deciding to sell it. We are deciding to find out what the facts are. We are deciding to find out what the information is. We are deciding to go out and get the evidence we need to make a well-informed decision. I would be surprised if we were to take the view that we are going to plug our ears and shut our eyes and refuse to look at the facts. The fact is, however, we have significant expenses ahead of us on the property. We have significant financial challenges in Ward 3 and Ward 2 around future facilities, and we have significant pressure from our residents about taxes and costs. So it strikes me that we have to put everything on the table, and we have to weigh everything in terms of its financial burden and its financial opportunity. The reality is that the possibility of supporting any public use there is limited by the lack of parking, and the property, I believe, I've always believed, would be much better if it was in the hands of someone who could love it and maintain it. It is, after all, already fully designated under Part 4 of the Heritage Act. So there's no threat to the property in my view. But I would urge you to not set a precedent by refusing to become informed on something and refusing to even study something. I believe we should continue to look at all options on this, and I would ask my colleagues to support the motion from the committee. And thank you, Councillor Robinson, for taking the chair temporarily so that I could make those few remarks. In order to move forward on this, we do need a mover and seconder to put item 4 on the floor. Councillor Johnston moves it, Councillor Adams seconds it, and I wonder if you could now, if there's no other speakers, raise your hands to indicate if you support item 4. 1, 2, 3. 3, 4, 5. Those against item 4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Item 4 fails. Councillor Giddings, you have a contrary motion.
Could I get a recorded vote, please?
Beg your pardon?
Could I have a recorded vote, please? No, of the original.
We just had a motion.
We just had a vote. I'd like a recorded record of it.
All right. Those against the, those for the committee, item 4, the motion to pass the item from the committee, please rise to be named. Councillor Adams, Councillor Knoll, Mayor Burton, Councillor Robinson, and Councillor Johnston. Those against? Councillor Khan, Councillor Grant, Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Elgar, Councillor Giddings, Councillor Bird, Councillor Demoff, and Councillor Duddick. The motion still fails. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Your Worship. The motion that I'd like to put forward is save and the same, striking option 3, the severance of the estate house and outbuilding, dividing property at the bottom natural whole of the property. And so that's the motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? 1. It's carried. That completes our work this evening on the...
That was easy.
Sorry? We need a little bit of order. We don't need total order, but we need a little bit. All right, so that completes our work on the standing committees and brings us to our first discussion item, and that is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Campaign for Long-Term Infrastructure, and that is moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor. The item is quite self-explanatory. We passed a similar motion at the region recently. FCM is doing great work in this area, and it's only proper that we show support and work with them to forge a new agreement with the federal government. And if there's any questions from members of council, we'll be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Robinson?
Really ditto, Your Worship. They're even, FCM's even asking us to do this, and we're just acceding to one of their requests.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Others? I'll put the vote then with your agreement. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that is adopted. That brings us to your information items, which have been circulated electronically to you. And that brings us to new business. And we have a number of items of new business. First is the Canada-China Investment Treaty Notice of Motion, which is moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Knoll. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that we waive the rules of procedure to deal with it this evening. And I believe there's two other motions as well.
All right. Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Khan, move to waive the procedure bylaw so that we can consider the Canada-China Investment Treaty item, the e-bingo item, and the Old Bronny Road Calsa Gate Streetscape Plan implementation motion to raise from the table. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. So now, Councillor Johnston and Councillor Robinson having spoken to their motion, are there any other speakers? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Oh, sorry. The first motion to waive the procedures. Didn't I call it? All those in favor?
You did call it.
All right, I did that. So now it's your motion is, sorry, you were shaking your head at me and you threw me. All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
So your motion is now carried.
Thank you. So now we can talk about the Canada-Chinese Investment Treaty motion, I would presume.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Well, while I support increased trade with bilateral trade with China, I have concerns about the lack of information that we've had from the federal government.
No, FCM.
And basically,
Councillor, I accidentally cut your mic off. Please turn it back on.
And I heard myself perfectly well. We'll start again. The motion is very self-explanatory, and I support increased bilateral trade with China, but I have concerns about the lack of information coming from the government on the discussions, and we just urge Council that we pass this and ask for transparency and openness in all discussions, as the results may affect business in this town.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Are there other speakers to this item? Councillor Knoll? All right, I'll call Councillor Elgar.
This, people should take this seriously if they check out the Canada-China deal. It's a little bit more than most of us know about, I think. The deal requires Canada to give Chinese companies the right to full protection and security from public opposition. If this trade agreement before us is put in place, it kind of blows away protection of the air, water, soil, and biodiverse ecosystems that sustain us all, and especially true in BC right now. There's a lot rides on this, and I really hope everybody supports this motion. My concern is it's going to be approved October 31st, so there's a lot of action that has to take place really fast because it's not going for public consultation at all. So check it out and you'll be shocked. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Any other speakers? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried too. And that brings us to the third item, or
Second.
sorry, the second item, which is the e-bingo one. So we have a motion. I just got to find it here.
It's on the agenda.
All right. All right, so moved by Councillor Knoll, seconded by Councillor Demoff. Whereas on April 16th, 2012, Council passed the following resolution with regard to the Charitable Gaming Centre Municipality Agreement, e-bingo, Clause 2 of Item 2 of the April 11, 2012 Administrative Services Committee, quote, that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign an agreement with the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation and other appropriate parties, subject to incorporation of changes to A, protect the town's requirement of product control, B, appropriate changes to the exit clauses, C, cost recovery, and D, appropriate reciprocity. Whereas the Mayor and staff have been in contact with municipalities as requested by Council to discuss strategies and seek collaboration on a common approach to seek changes to the standard contract. Whereas OLG has confirmed it will not incorporate any revisions to its standard Charitable Gaming Centre Municipality Agreement. Whereas local charities will be financially adversely affected if the town does not agree to the current standard terms of the Charitable Gaming Centre Municipality Agreement. Whereas Council does not want video lottery terminals or slot machines, collectively known as VLTs, to be available for public use in the town. Whereas in order to protect local charities from the above referenced financially adverse effects and in light of OLG's refusal to revise the Charitable Gaming Centre Municipality Agreement, Council is willing to agree to the current terms of the agreement without amendments if the town has reasonable assurances that VLTs will not be introduced pursuant to the Charitable Gaming Centre Municipality Agreement without Council's prior consent. Whereas 2 written representations have been submitted by the OLG declaring that VLTs will not be included in the modernization of charitable gaming. Whereas commitments have been received from the owner of the Delta Bingo Hall and the property owner of the facility at 483 Spears Road that VLTs will not be introduced on the site without Council's prior consent. And whereas Council believes that the representations and commitments provide the town with reasonable assurances that VLTs will not be introduced pursuant to the agreement without Council's prior consent, therefore be it resolved that the April 16, 2012 resolution of Council with regard to the Charitable Gaming Centre Municipality Agreement e-bingo as cited above be reconsidered in accordance with section 6.5 of the procedure bylaw. And for the public, what that means is if this passes, there'll be a series of votes to reverse that decision and authorize the signing of the agreement. So the first step is this one by Councillors Knoll and Demoff to reopen, if you will, the discussion. And if there's debate or questions, now's the time. Councillor Bird.
Yeah, I have some concern. At what, I know there's got to be a series of motions. At what series or of motions do we hear from our legal staff. I know we had some input, I believe, on this from our legal staff prior to the April 16th motion. So I'm prepared to go along to try to, if you want to unwind it, but I would like, before any kind of a vote taking place, to reverse our current decision to hear from our legal staff.
And you will certainly have that chance.
Okay, before we take the series that we've now gone beyond our return. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so Councillor Demoff? Councillor Knoll?
Do we want to entertain that first to hear from legal staff before we make comments? Because I don't have questions, I have comments.
All right. If I took our colleague to say he's content with the unwinding, at which point we will then come at the end to a motion to sign it, and that would be when legal advice normally would be wanted. And I thought we'd do it then. Councillor Robinson?
Just a confirmation that if we are going to reconsider, it'll require 9 votes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Demoff, did you have anything?
I do wish to make comments. I was just deferring to Councillor Bird's question in case that was the appropriate order of things, but I'm happy to live with whatever you want. I do have comments.
I'm your servant, Council.
My point ends up being to hear legal advice now. Either we have to recess or we have to clear the room to hear that. I didn't want to do that, but I didn't want to imply, well, I have no problem reconsidering it if we want to, because unless vote number 1 carries, then the item dies right then and there.
Right.
So before we get to the point of we'll return, which are giving a message out there that we're on that, I'd like to hear legal advice. I think you have to support, and if you want to hear legal advice, you have to support the first motion to go forward, but that does not mean that the issue is opened up. But it's going to be very difficult if you don't want to go there because of the way the 3/4 majority. But I will support, as I'm saying, I will support the first one, but I want to hear legal advice, and that maybe determine how I vote going forward after that.
Perfect. Councillor Knoll, do you still wish to speak now?
Yes, I do.
Speak then.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I guess it's pretty surprising to most to think that I would be moving this motion in the first place, because it's I guess it was an issue that I started a long time ago when it first came to administrative services, and it's snowballed from there and to the point where council was pretty strong in its position on this particular issue, and I think to this very day still are very strong, and I think you'll see that coming out of, well, you see that out of the notice of motion, and certainly from the questions from Councillor Bird. What I do want to do is I want to make a couple comments, and I apologize, I'm going to be a couple minutes because this is an important issue to me, and I just want to get some things on the record. First of all, I want to thank the charitable and not-for-profit sector for their patience and perseverance while we wrestled with this decision. It has been a very difficult decision for some of us, particularly for me. I still feel very strongly about the position that we took. I don't believe we have necessarily a compromise from the government, but when you consider what part of our prayer is, and I'm going to quote it, we have to govern with the wider community in mind. I think that the argument that's being put forward by the charitable and not-for-profit sector about the impact that they have on the community and the need that they have for this particular style of fundraising is so great that I have to, and I think we as council have to consider the wider community's interests that would not be served well if we were to simply allow the government to hold us hostage on this particular issue. So thank you for the charitable sector. I hope that you'll get your resolution tonight that you're looking for. Thinking about the darts and laurel section of the Globe and Mail, so that was my laurel for the night. My dart, it's a very big, fat, juicy dart, and it goes to the Ontario Lottery Gaming Corporation for their attitude towards communities by not reflecting local decision-making or the wishes of residents or their duly elected representatives. It's mind-boggling to me that if they truly, honestly have the intention of not introducing slot VLT, or also technically known as random number gaming systems, why wouldn't they incorporate that in the agreement? This is I just do not understand why the province has been so stubborn on this particular issue. Their actions are not speaking as loud as their words here, and I find that really I find that really upsetting. By all appearances, I believe that the OLG is, at the end of the day, trying to do an end run on municipalities to sneak casino-style gaming and the highly addictive gaming into those communities. I also am upset that they've been conducting a one-sided PR blitz to get the public on side and not really necessarily to argue the point of view of those who have concerns about the form of gambling that we are looking to avoid through the discussions that we've been spending almost a year at. But by reconsidering our previous resolution, we can help open the doors for charities to have some surety for their fundraising ability. And I think that probably that is more important at this juncture than trying to make a political or to make a policy decision at their dime, essentially. And so it's for that reason that I'm personally able to say that I'm prepared to reconsider my previous position and vote in favor of such a reconsideration. I would ask all my colleagues to consider that, and I'm hoping this is unanimous tonight. And we're going to hear a legal opinion on this a little bit later, but my opinion I'm about to express is extrapolated based on all of the opinions I've heard to date from legal staff, from everybody else. I think that the undertaking that the local bingo operator and his landlord has made is admirable, and I really appreciate it. In the grand scheme of things, I'm not sure it's worth the paper it's written on. If push comes to shove at the end of the day, if the province wants to do this, they're going to get to do it, and there's not much we can really say about it. Whether he comes to council or not to ask for our permission, it's a nice thing. It's great that it's going to happen, and it will give us a chance to have that public discussion again. But we're going to rely on the goodwill of the local bingo operator and the charities to understand that should that position come up, that I would hope that you'd be united with us to push back to the province to say this is not something that we want in our community. So with those remarks, I'm pleased, I'm not sure that's the proper word, but I'm satisfied to move the reconsideration motion to put in process the series of events that has to happen to reconsider our previous position and to actually get an agreement in place so that you can move on and get on with the business of raising money for the good works that you do in this community. But make no mistake, as long as I'm a member of this council, I'll be watching carefully for the day when the OLG, and I mark my words, I suspect it will be in the next 5 to 10 years, when they try to implement a mini casino with random number, random play, highly addictive VLT slot games. When that time comes, I'll be back at council, and if I'm still here, asking for a very strong position to avoid that. I'm not against bingo. I've made that clear, perfectly clear, but I am totally and 100% opposed to what the province is attempting to do here. And I think it's important that position be made clear, that notwithstanding this reconsideration, that the words in our resolution are very clear here, that council does not want VLTs or slots, collectively known as VLTs. So I've stated, it's in the document, even though we're going to hopefully move forward with this evening, I don't think that any of our positions changed on that. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for your willingness to allow me to ramble a little bit here and get those points on the record.
Thank you. You're at the start of a list. Councillor Khan?
Actually, I just have a point of information here. As you're aware, Councillor Demoff and I voted against the majority initially on this, and I understand that we're not allowed to move the motion. Can we second it, though?
You're only prevented from moving it. Councillor Demoff.
I'm more than happy to second this because I think it's long overdue. I think the council has sent a message. I think it's important to remember that OLG does not set policy, the government does. So having sat through a meeting when the charities all talked about the work that they do in the community, it's far more than 34 charities that are affected by our decision here. I think it was closer to 75, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in lives, including addiction research that is funded by these bingos. It really is something that we do need to reconsider and we do need to move forward on, and I'm very pleased to second the motion to reconsider.
Thank you, Councillor Demoff. Perhaps the proceeds from e-bingo can buy us a new sound system. I don't think, I say it in jest, I don't believe we'll ever get one. Councillor Robinson.
Your Worship, thank you very much. I decided that I would go back in history a little bit, and probably Councillor Keith and I are the only two here now that were here then, when I'm going to talk about the fact that a committee was formed with Superintendent or Inspector Mike Ekert in charge of the morality squad for the Halton Regional Police Service. I was chair of the committee. We had a member on the committee from the province, and we had a couple of citizens. And we reworked this for about 2 months, trying to determine what the right thing to do for the council of the day to decide on. And that decision was reached at that time, Your Worship, that we didn't want to have any of the VLTs, and that's still our same position. And then we had an unqualified or doesn't count referendum, and the majority of the people didn't want it either. So I'd just like to say that that's the way the position of the town was these many years ago, when I was involved these many years ago, but I think it's time that we took another look. So I'm happy to support the motion of reconsideration.
Order? All right, you have to have respect for your colleagues, guys. All right, any other speakers? I'll call the vote on the motion to reconsider. It takes 9 to pass. All those in favor? And it passes. That's unanimous. So then we need to vote on, where is my other way? Okay, the original motion, which doesn't need a mover and a seconder. It carries forward from the record, the clerk and I have ruled. The original motion was that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign an agreement with the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, OLG, and other appropriate parties, subject to incorporation of changes to protect the town's requirement of product control. B, appropriate changes to the exit clauses. C, cost recovery. And D, appropriate reciprocity. And in order to get to a motion to sign it, at which time legal advice would certainly be in order, this has to be voted down, and it takes a majority to pass it or defeat it. And Councillor Bird, are you content with proceeding as I just outlined and taking legal advice at the next step?
That's the process, Your Worship.
All right. Then in that case, this motion is before you. Any discussion? All those in favor of the old motion, raise your hands. Those against? And the old motion is defeated, and we now need a new motion. And I have a new motion from Councillor Duddock and Councillor Johnston that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the standard charitable gaming center municipality agreement, I beg your pardon, as provided by the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, and that the OLG be advised that in signing this agreement, the town of Oakville is relying on the OLG's oral and written representations that neither video lottery terminals nor slot machines will be introduced into the town pursuant to the Charitable Gaming Center Municipality Agreement without council's prior consent. And Councillor Bird would like to receive legal advice on this. Do you need to go into camera for it?
I think I'd like to get the legal advice. My experience with oral, and we got a lawyer here, agreements aren't worth the paper they're written on when it comes down to interpretation down the road. And as this thing, as I understand, has at least a 15-year lifespan, I would certainly like to have legal advice of what the definition of OLG's oral representations are and how we carry those forward.
All right. Mr. Carr, are you comfortable giving advice subject to solicitor-client privilege in public, or do you recommend we go into camera?
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend we go into camera, please.
Thank you. Councillor Bird, can I take you for moving that we go into camera for the purpose of...
You can, Your Worship.
Thank you. I need a seconder for that. Councillor Khan, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That passes. So we're going to go into camera. We have a room in another part of the building that we can go to, or you in the audience can wait outside the door. It's faster if you wait outside the door. You took the hint. Thank you very much. You're a lovely audience. Madam Clerk, would you arrange the room for a meeting closed to the public? All right, I'll now call to order the resumption of our council meeting in public session. Council has met in a session closed to the public for the purpose of receiving advice subject to solicitor-client privilege having regard to litigation or potential litigation. And at this time, I will recognize Councillor Dudek.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, there has been a revision to the motion that was previously proposed, and that I will read in its entirety. Starting first, whereas 2 written representations, quote, representations have been submitted by the OLG dated March 16th and April 16th, 2012, declaring that VLTs will not be included in the modernization of charitable gaming. Whereas commitments, bracketed commitments, have been received from the owner of Delta Bingo Hall and the property owner of the facility at 483 Spears Road that VLTs will not be introduced on the site without council's prior consent, and whereas council believes that the representations and commitments provide the town with reasonable assurances that VLTs will not be introduced pursuant to the CGCMA without council's prior consent. And there has been another item added to the motion reading, subject to the lease agreement between Belvin Investments Limited and Delta Bingo Incorporated, specifically referring VLTs as a preclusion as follows. The leasee will not, under any circumstances, operate slot machines and or VLTs in the leased premises without the consent of Oakville Town Council. And then items 2 and 3 remain the same as 1 and 2 previously read into the record. And at the appropriate time, I'd like to speak to it.
Thank you, Councillor Dudek. Is Councillor Johnston still seconding us? Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Dudek.
I believe Councillor Demoff has a question.
Councillor Demoff.
Would I be able to ask the landlord who's present what he thinks about that addition to the lease amending agreement?
Councillor, go ahead.
So, in essence, the one sentence in your lease amending agreement, it's adding VLTs and or slots to what's currently there.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tonight, I'm very pleased to present this motion, and I ask my fellow colleagues for their support. There are several people who need to be thanked for making this motion possible this evening. Thank you to Councillors Knoll and Demoff for moving the reconsideration of this issue. Without their efforts, we would not be in a position to even consider this motion. Thanks goes to the various charities and sports groups in our community who have raised, and I trust will continue to raise, much-needed funds to support their respective programs and initiatives. Your patience throughout this process has been greatly appreciated. I don't believe anyone on council ever wanted to see this facility closed. I can't speak for others on council, but for myself, I wanted to have my questions and concerns answered regarding our future relationship with this facility and how we would continue to protect the community's interests if we proceeded. Your patience has provided us that opportunity. Thank you to Delta Bingo's owner, Cam Johnston, and his many employees, Delta Bingo. They raise a considerable amount of funds that goes back into our community, as Councillor Demoff indicated, and having them continue to operate within our community will continue to assist our various charities and sports groups. Thanks should also go to the owner of the building, Mr. Mario Palladino, for working with us to arrive at a positive solution to Council's concerns. And finally, and this is by no means in order, my heartfelt thanks goes to Mayor Burton for your efforts in assisting everyone to reach a conclusion to this impasse. Your leadership throughout this process enabled all the stakeholders an opportunity to participate in what I consider a very successful outcome. Once again, the Oakville community demonstrates what can be achieved through our working together to make things happen. Unlike the normal games of chance where you have winners and losers, tonight we all have a chance to win. Hopefully with council's support, we can make that happen. And at the appropriate time, I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Thank you, Councillor Duddick. Councillor Johnston?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Duddick took away a lot of what I was going to say, so I'll be brief. I agree 100% with Councillor Noel's position. Shocked as he may be with that. There we go. So I still am disappointed with the position of OLG, but I want to thank the property owner and the bingo operator. They've heard council's concerns and they've tried to provide assurances that they will adhere to our positions. So in that, thank you very much, and I'm happy to second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Noel.
I promise not to do another speech, but Councillor Duddick just reminded me, or something I should say. I don't think I've ever said this on council before, so I'm going to say it tonight with respect to this issue. I want to thank you, Your Worship, for your help on this issue, because initially I don't think you were all that excited about the prospect, but I think as time wore on, you realized, the concerns that were being expressed, and you championed the issue, and it was only because I think of your involvement in this issue that we had the opportunity to have the proper vetting of this issue and to raise the awareness that we were able to do. And I thank you most sincerely for your efforts on this. It was a difficult time for all of us, and we came under a lot of collective pressure from the community. But I think that we stood our ground. I think we've made our points, and I think we're much stronger for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Councillor Elgar?
I would actually like to thank all the people in Oakville that come and send emails and voice their concerns. What it shows is that this council listens, and and when the Mayor Burton got involved in it, I think he took a lot of abuse at the beginning, and I'd just like to say that I think he's done a pretty good job of stick handling this through, and that at the end of the day, everyone is happy. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor DeMoff?
I say ditto what Councillor Duddick said. I would also say I'm really thrilled to see this finally coming to fruition, and I would be remiss if I also didn't add a thank you to MPP Kevin Flynn, who brought the charities together and has spent a great deal of time working on this issue. So I'd like to extend thanks to MPP Flynn as well.
Thank you, Councillor. If I could be permitted a brief remark, I want to thank Mario and John Palladino for working with us to come up with what we so often in our history have had to do, and that is a Made in Oakville solution. We couldn't seem to get anywhere with the Boys Downtown, but right here in our own town, with the cooperation of the operator, Cam Johnstone, the Palladinos have made it possible for us to make that Made in Oakville solution. So I want to give a special shout out of thanks to the Palladinos. I appreciate it very much. With that, Councillor Duddick has thank you. Councillor Duddick has asked for a recorded vote. So to vote for the motion, please rise to be recognized. Councillor Khan, Councillor Adams, Councillor Grant, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Elgar, Mayor Burton, Councillor Giddings, Councillor Bird, Councillor DeMoff, Councillor Duddick, Councillor Robinson, and Councillor Johnston. Thank you very much. That carries. Thank you. Now, we have another matter, and that is Councillor Elgar, lifting from the table. So we have a motion from Councillor Elgar and Councillor Lapworth that the Old Bronte Road Castlegate Streetscape Implementation Report by Planning Services, tabled at the Planning and Development Council meeting on September 10th, be lifted from the table and brought forward for consideration at the Planning and Development meeting on November 12th. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. So now, where did I get on my agenda? I'm down to regional reports, I think. So we come, are there any regional reports or questions for town boards and advisory committees? Thank you. Are there any requests for reports? Look at that, we've got one right here. Oh, this is an interesting one. Councillor Dudek and Councillor Demoff, would you like to read this and speak to it, or would you like me to read it?
Your Worship,
All right. Moved by, so this is a request for report, and if council agrees with the use of staff time, this is the request. That staff, in consultation with Halton Region Police Services, provide a report on the potential introduction of video surveillance cameras to address public safety in the downtown Oakville, Kerr Village, and Bronte Village business improvement areas. Such report to include but not be limited to A, the cost of installation, ongoing maintenance, and ongoing operation. B, siting and number of cameras required. C, ownership of the equipment and related responsibilities relating to monitoring, data, records retention, access to records, etc. D, privacy concerns, and E, liability. Do you want to discuss that?
Just briefly, Your Worship, just to say, this has been a concern for some time, given the graffiti and the vandalism that quite often takes place within other areas in addition to the commercial areas, but quite often the police are quite frustrated that they cannot prosecute or that their hands are tied unless they have some proof of an offense taking place. And given the expense that we incur as a result of replacing and dealing with the vandalism and the graffiti, I thought we should maybe be looking at this. And strangely enough, on this past weekend when I was at AMO in Collingwood, lo and behold, at their municipal building up in the watchtower was a camera pointed down towards the street. So we're not alone in this regard.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? I'll call the vote then. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's approved. That brings us to another request for report. This moved by Councillor Dudek and seconded by Councillor Elgar, that staff be requested to report on the implications of extending the Veterans Parking Permit Program to include veterans under the age of 65. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That report is approved. Now, I wonder if we could have a mover and seconder for the reading of the bylaws. Councillor Robinson and Councillor Elgar, thank you. This is authority for bylaws 2012-86, 91, 96, and 106 as recorded in the agenda for the evening. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? The bylaws are adopted. That completes our agenda. Thank you for your time and attention. It's been great working with you. We are adjourned.